Welcome to Brother Nature. You're watching Fox 2 Detroit Live. This is our weekly show about the environment, Great Lakes, and nature, and everything that kind of fits in between it. I am your host, a less freezing Jack Nissen this week than last week. Thank God for the sun. This week we got a great episode for you. We're talking about hunting, specifically deer hunting. I'm going to introduce our first guest, Brent Rudolph. Come on over here, sir.
All right.
How are you?
Doing well, Jack.
Introduce yourself. What exactly do you do in the DNR?
I'm Brent Rudolph. I'm the deer, elk, and moose management specialist with the Department of Natural Resources.
So kind of a busy time this time of year, right?
Yeah, firearm season, November 15th through 30th is one of the busier times for folks in my line of work.
Okay, so we're actually recapping the firearm season from deer hunting this specific year. I know it's a time-honored tradition in Michigan. Tell us, Brent, how did things shake out this year?
So a couple important things. Yeah, it's a fantastic time of year, big tradition in Michigan. We saw heading into the season a little under 600,000 different licensed deer hunters.
Okay.
We had a bit fewer people buy a license, but a bit more total tags sold compared to last year. So pretty much on par in terms of the potential participation.
Okay.
Heading into firearm season, November 15th is the opening day. Typically, almost as much as 15% of all the deer taken all year long are often on that one day of the year.
It's probably a pretty noisy day, too.
It's a noisy day. It's a busy time. We had pretty mild conditions, a little bit of wind and blowing and rain in some places. So our opening day take was down a little bit compared to last year, about 9% or so. But we saw, especially in southern Michigan, an uptake through the remainder of that time.
So and the first day is always the busiest day, right? I mean, and how steep is that drop off usually?
It's pretty substantial. I mean, since our opener is always on the 15th, it rotates through days of the week, right? And so this year that was a Saturday. So the first, the opening weekend, Saturday and Sunday together, and the first couple days are usually pretty high. But yeah, that's a big. That is an event of itself. It's a lot of tradition just around that part of deer hunting,
totally.
Let alone all the rest of what it means to folks in Michigan.
Yeah. I saw Michigan is actually one of the biggest hunting states in the Midwest. And the graph that I know you presented to the Natural Resource Commission, it spikes way on that first day, and then it kind of tapers off.
Yep.
There's sort of a discrepancy, though. There you have, a bucks on the top and then does on the bottom. Tell me a little bit about that ratio. I know that's a really important part of this.
You bet. Yeah, we worked pretty hard to try and get at least equal antlered and antlerless deer.
Okay.
So we call that because that's how you define what you're looking at in the field. But generally, it's trying to distinguish between males and females.
Okay.
Right? So taking antlerless deer or does, female deer, is what manages the population. So especially in places like southern Michigan, we really want to prioritize that. Now, bucks are fascinating, and Michigan hunters love their buck hunting, so it can be a challenge to have that balanced out. But yeah, absolutely. Opening day of firearm season especially, it can be 2/3 or more is antlered bucks from that big day of the year. But our antlerless harvest then is often spread out over longer seasons, again, especially in southern Michigan, where we even have special seasons just for antlerless deer, and so that tends to accumulate more slowly through the remainder of the hunting that we will continue to have available.
Gotcha. So we're still going to be getting numbers then throughout the remainder of the year, it sounds like?
Yeah, that's right. And that's another important thing now. For 4 years now, this is the fourth year that we have required hunters to report their harvest. So that gives us live information, but there's a lag. We allow up to 72 hours for reports.
Okay.
And honestly, some folks do report, but don't report when they're supposed to. So we'll continue to see numbers, come in, and that'll change. But it's been an interesting addition to be able to track relatively live how things seem to be going with that reporting system.
And that's a relatively new reporting system, right?
That's right. We piloted it in 2021. It was optional at that time, and then it's been required since 2022. So for anybody out there, please report that deer harvest. It's an important part of how we track what's going on in Michigan.
Yeah, and tracking how it's all going is really important, not just for the knowing how many deer are harvested, but I mean, there's a whole emphasis on, knowing the population of deer and buck, specifically, all of them. Yep. So walk me through, you said weather was one hazard, or maybe a bit of an impediment to firearm season this year. What about, are there any other sort of barriers that hunters came into?
We were looking at heading into this season, put together kind of a forecast of what to expect. And across each of our regions, in the Upper Peninsula, the winter weather from the whole year before is often a big factor as well. It's a lean time of year for deer in the UP. When there's a lot of snow, it can be hard for deer to make it through, and that'll affect either the number or the condition of deer overall. So last winter was a moderate, bordering a severe winter in the UP. So we expected we might see some effects from that.
Okay, and what about diseases?
Diseases, it's another factor we always take a look at. There's a few different ones. It's a bigger factor in wildlife management than it used to once be. But in southern Michigan here, folks might have EHD or epizootic hemorrhagic disease on their mind. We did see some localized effects from those outbreaks. We can see that from our deer harvest reporting, but overall it's not a big widespread impact, although it may be substantial right around where individual people are hunting.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, well, Brent, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That was Brent Rudolph talking hunting, specifically firearm season this year. It's always a topical thing this time of year, and I'm so excited that he got to join us. Coming up after the break, we're going to dive a little bit more into hunting as a conservation mechanism, as well as my own experience out and about. We'll be right back. And welcome back. So, hunting obviously is a huge cultural thing here in Michigan. Interestingly enough, usually you learn about it through your family. You kind of learn about maybe going on hunts with your parents. That is not always the case these days, but there was a class over at Michigan State University where they will take students out on a mentored hunt. It's usually their first experience, but as the professor taught, it's pretty interesting. Take a look.
So our class is open to anybody in the university. Typically, we have fisheries and wildlife students, and then a few from the College of Ag and Natural Resources, different majors from the college. But basically, it is an introduction to how hunting can be used as a conservation method. I think that hunters are kind of the original conservationists. They care about the environment, they care about the animal populations, and they can see the bigger picture of how hunting contributes to having an overall healthy wildlife population.
Thinking specifically of deer and the class that you teach, tell me a little bit about the curriculum. What is sort of even the time that the class happens, the sort of students that you get? Walk me through a little bit of the basics of that.
I want students to be able to leave the class with tangible skills that they can use both in their personal life and if they are going into a fisheries and wildlife field in their professional life. So we do the Michigan Hunter Safety course, and students have time at the firearm range so that they can learn about safe handling of firearms, how to store them, how to transport them, and all of the things that hunter safety course offers. We do the Michigan Bow Hunter certification course. We do CPR. We tour the Wildlife Disease Lab to look at that aspect of conservation. And then we round off our semester with labs doing a deer processing lab. Anybody that's in the 3 credit can come into the 1 credit and go on a mentored deer hunt with volunteers from the Michigan National Deer Association chapter. They all saw a deer. Nobody harvested anything because that's not the goal. We just want them to get out and experience what it's like to prepare, what it's like to be out there, and what it's like to see deer.
And how cool is it to just see deer? Now, I will say, I did speak to the owner of that property to go and hunt. He says that it's a pretty abysmal ratio of hunting buck to hunting doe in Michigan, and he would really prefer the tradition kind of reverse course a little bit. I actually got to take a shot at this too. I went out hunting for the very first time of my life this year. I have to thank my friend Nate Masters for it. Here's a little bit of a look at it. It is going to be a pretty cold one when we kick things off. That's why I'm starting with long underwear, as well as joggers going over that, followed by my Dickies going over that. Keeping me warm on the torso will be my Smart Wool shirt, as well as 2, I haven't decided which one I'm wear yet. They both keep me pretty warm in the winter, as well as a orange hat to designate my hunting status. I'm gonna wear at least 2 of these, keep my feet pretty warm, as well as a couple mixture of gloves and a buff for my neck. And obviously we cannot forget a headlamp. It is getting pretty dark this time of year. Now, I did goof up a little bit. That headlamp does not have red light, which is way better if you're going out 4:30 in the morning which is what we did. You can kind of see just how dark it was. The stars are pretty nice. We were near Pinckney, actually, and my friend that I went with, he had it all set up the day before. He had a makeshift ladder that you actually had to use a linesman rope to sort of cinch around the tree and walk up. It was not an easy experience, but of course the first one never is. And I will also say, we did not see anything. I know, a tragedy, but at the same time, I actually had so much fun because I really learned it's just a lot of sitting and a lot of being with yourself, which is pretty therapeutic, which is pretty cool. Enjoyed it a lot. I recommend everyone take a shot at it because even if you don't see anything, you're definitely going to enjoy it. Coming up after the break, we are going to dive into a couple other stories that happened earlier this week and even the week before. Stay tuned for more on that after this. Now, this actually didn't get brought up last week. We ran out of time, but I am so excited to bring it this week. Last week was the 2025 PFAS Summit. You probably didn't hear about it because it was all virtual, but they did dive into a lot of the standards and science and materials that go into both mitigating this stuff and taking it out of the environment. It's kind of complicated, honestly. Per and polyfluoro is a really, really resistant chemical compound. This stuff was made with using nonstick pans, but unfortunately, it has really, really washed itself into the environment, and it's kind of all over our drinking water. Another place you might find it is in firefighting foam, which is why there's so much of it now at Selfridge Air Base. I got to listen to one of these really interesting presentations. This was from Minerals Technology Incorporated. They were tasked with actually mitigating and not necessarily removing PFAS from the soil, but preventing it from leaching into groundwater. This is one of the biggest barriers that a lot of cities have because PFAS and all the chemicals that kind of fall underneath PFAS, there's a strong sort of correlation with cancer, with kidney issues, with heart problems. And even though it's a pretty complicated science, what they did, I really, really like this, they went to Wyoming. They dug up clay from volcanic eruptions a million years ago. They refined that clay and turned the microscopic pellets into a magnet that would attract PFAS. All this does is bond with PFAS within the soil, but what it also does is it keeps it from dripping into the water and entering our water supply. This stuff does not break down in the environment. It wasn't made to break down. So, of course, this mind-boggling science is sort of needed to, I guess, remove it as a hazard. But I found it very fascinating, and I can't understand. Science is a little complicated as well, but good thing we have smarter people working on trying to figure that out. All right, stepping outside now. Back onto more ice coverage. So, Great Lakes ice coverage is just now starting to seep into our national, or our Michigan metrics, rather. You'll see some ice coverage at Saginaw Bay. You'll see it over in Green Bay, and even a little bit on Lake St. Clair. The Great Lakes do not freeze over much these days, and it really does not start in early December. A lot of that heat is still, from the summer, is still there in the water, which is why it takes a long time for this stuff to freeze over. Now, I would imagine this cold weather probably helped things along, but we're going to actually see that sort of stuff sort of turn away, I think, a little bit as temperature begins to warm up. Maybe by January and February, we'll see a little bit more ice coverage. And finally, I do want to sort of put a little PSA out to people. Be safe if you're going out onto the ice. Inland lakes down in the lower peninsula, I would not trust. We actually did have a tragic report out of Kalkaska County earlier last week. 2 people did die after going out onto the ice. Basically the tips from the DNR is no ice is safe ice. But ice fishing is a huge thing, which is why there's a couple things you can kind of look forward to. Make sure the ice is clear, maybe test it out with your feet a little bit, but really be careful. Seriously, these days, it's kind of dangerous. If you do fall into the water, shift your weight around. Make sure that you kind of use your body to sort of hoist yourself out, and if you can, do it quickly. It's going to get pretty cold pretty fast. That's all for me at Brother Nature. It's been a freezing and fun time. However, we got a whole lot more fun next week and then next year. I have so many stories I can't wait to bring to all of you. This has been Brother Nature at Fox 2 Detroit. I'm your host, Jack Nissen, and Bree Teamer is coming up next.